All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry, it seems that something happened, something malfunctioned. So I'm just going to wait a minute for everyone to pop on. So if you're watching the replay, just skip to the 1 minute ahead, and then we will get officially started there. And that way you don't have to watch me say hi to people or do all of that. So I apologize. My original stream apparently was not working. So, um, been having some trouble. I don't know why, where my phone won't FaceTime, and maybe that's why it wasn't working with YouTube for some reason. So, hi. We'll get started in about 20 seconds. Thank you all for hopping over here. Instead, I can see we've got about a similar number as we did over on the other stream. So I'm happy everybody kind of came back. Happy long weekend, whether you're in Canada and just celebrated Canada Day or you're in the States and 4th of July is coming up or anywhere in the world. I hope you have a long weekend. I don't, but I'm approaching the end of the school year. So pretty soon I'll be on school holidays. And I wanted to chat today about dyes, and I'm really excited to have a little bit of a let's get real chat about dyes. Talk about some things about what I purged, what I kept, why I've dwindled my stash down to what it is, and are dyes the future? Are digital machines the future? Just kind of have a random chat about dye cutting. And I thought it would be really fun to get everybody involved on the chat and see what all your opinions are, and whether you're a digital kind of gal or man, lad, or whether you enjoy the manual dye cutting. So I have all of my dies and they are on the inside of my cupboard doors. So I generally only have that amount of space for my dies, similar to my stamps. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that I have 3 boxes for my stamps, and when they get full, I have to start purging. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about um, the quality of dyes. That's a good one, Cindy. Thank you. I'll put that on my list. About dyes in general. And so if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat as we go along, and I hope I will see all of them. Okay. So one of the reasons why it sparked me to come and chat about dyes is I've noticed that they've been significantly increasing in price these days. And so I've been kind of shying away, I guess you could say, from buying new dyes from certain companies because they've gone up in price. And I don't blame them at all for going up in price. Everything's going up in price: food, groceries, gas, whatever. So I totally get that that is happening and it's a thing. Um, and so, but it is starting to make me think twice about dye cutting, about what kind of dyes I buy. And then also, not only that, but is it worth it then to just switch completely to like a scan and cut or a Cricut or whatever? So, hi everyone. Oh, all the way from Namibia. How exciting. Scotland, Portugal, Idaho, Texas. I love the crafty community. We're spread out all over the world. Okay. So, first question has popped up. Where did I get my ink storage from? Organize More. So, but we're back onto dyes. Okay, so when I was purging through my dyes over the years and I was getting rid of things, I really noticed a trend, and I wanted to talk about this trend. So, over here on my channel, we always talk about using your stash, and then we also talk about as well, really figuring out your actual stamping or card making style, so that whenever you buy something, you actually want to use it and you actually do use it. And I've linked below in the video description. I have a little free guide on, how to buy or stop wasting your money on craft supplies that you won't use and start investing in supplies you will. And I have a little bit of an ABC approach. And I wanted to talk about that first, and then we'll get into things like what types of dyes I hang on to. So if you want a free download, you can just go grab it from the video description. So the first one is A for analyze. And this is such a good one when you're looking at your stash, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your stash. And to just take a look at the cards that you actually send out. So I couldn't believe when I moved over here how many stamps and dies I had that were just for the most random occasions, like teacher appreciation, for example. I had like a whole box of teacher appreciation stamps. I'm a teacher myself, so I liked the stamps, but I don't have kids or anything, so I didn't really have a reason to give them out except for to colleagues now and again. So one of the things I totally recommend is to take a look at the actual cards you send out, and then you can dwindle your stash from there, because I have a whole checklist on here. For example, if you don't send graduation cards. Maybe that's not a thing in your culture or in your country. For example, you don't need graduation stamps or dies. Things like Halloween. If you don't celebrate Halloween, you obviously don't need those in your stash, things like that. And so that was kind of the one way that I started paring down, not just stamps, but dies. And then really making sure that when I was shopping in the future, that I wasn't picking out those things, regardless of how cute the card I saw on Instagram was or on a YouTube tutorial. I thought to myself, okay, maybe I try and find something similar, similar style or similar font or whatever. But obviously, I don't need those, as cute as they might be, right? I can't even tell you how many Halloween stamps I had at one point. And I'm like, I don't make Halloween cards. Why do I have these? Yeah, I'm just all about getting the use out of the things that you have. So the second one is brand, and then trying to figure out your personal style. So one thing you might notice is that you're gravitating towards brands. Like, let's say, like for me personally, I know that I use a lot of Altenew stuff. I love their stuff, and I love Concord and Ninths. Especially anything that is in their font or their alphabet dies, things like that. And everyone's going to have their personal style, right? If you like critters, you might be going more towards Heffy Doodle or more towards Lawn Fawn. If you're into elegant stamps or florals like myself, you might be more Altenew, the Ton, those kinds of things. Pretty Pink Fresh Studios, and sometimes you'll notice after a while is like there's a trend in the brands that you're really attracted to. And so when it comes to buying dies or buying stamps, whichever one you want, those are the websites you might be going to more so than trying to purchase the random ones that, maybe sit around for a while. I know for me personally, I don't use a lot of critters. I have like 2 or 3 in my stash just for, kids' birthday cards or something that I might need. But I know as cute as I think they are, I'm not going to buy them, right? Okay, and then the C for the ABCs is to create. So now that you have an idea for your personal style, you can take things one step further. One thing that I love to do for my dies, and I'm going to pick one here that I haven't touched really. This is a brand new one. So I like to grab a permanent marker, and then I just put a little dot on my die. And then I know that I'm actually using it. Or maybe when I go through my dies and I notice I haven't used it yet, I'm going to throw it into a basket that's really close to my desk or something. That's going to be like, okay, you need to use this. You bought this, you like it, you want to use it. Why haven't you used it yet? Right. So I'd love for you to know, or I'd love to know in the comments, like what as far as the ABCs. So what occasions do you create cards for, or which brands, for example, do you tend to gravitate to? And I'm going to switch up here and start talking about some of the things that I really look for in dies and the things that I really have been focusing in on, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to get a die, especially at the prices they are now, and I'm not saying to not support these small businesses, they're going to need it more than ever right now. But just to make sure that when you're supporting the small business, you're actually going to use the thing that you spent the money for. You don't want to be spending all this money and then not using them all, right? So that's the thing. And Cindy says she gets sucked in and by watching demonstrations and thinking, oh, I need that. And there's nothing wrong with that, Cindy. You can say, if you're getting sucked into it, but you really look at it and you think, hey, okay, is this an occasion that I create for? Is this a brand that I tend to use? Or maybe it's a new brand, so you want to check it out. And then, do I have something similar in my stash? And then if not, maybe you can look for something that's similar, but that would be more towards your style. Like, especially if there's a really cool thank you die or something. There's so many thank you dies out there that if there's the one, for example, that you're like, oh, I like that one, but maybe the font isn't quite right. Maybe there's something similar, right? So everybody's sharing their favorite brands in the comments right now. And as I said, you definitely want to support as much as you can during these hard times, if it's possible for you. But that's why I always try to, in my videos at the moment anyway, for the most part, really just use old supplies, things from my stash, talk about alternatives. And especially if you're in my VIP program, I just did a live class last Saturday, and we talked about, okay, if you don't have this, then grab this, or there's always alternatives to things that you can get around the fact that you might not have that exact supply. All right, so if you had to pick one brand of dye ink, what would it be? I have a smattering. Okay, I'm going to answer that question quickly just because it's not about dyes. I want to make sure that everybody's getting what they came here for. But Catherine Pooler, Everybody knows I'm a big Catherine Pooler fan. And they're great inks. They're so vibrant, wonderful inks. But you need the refills. That's the only thing. The only little downside. But they don't contaminate between each other. There's a million colors. They're super vibrant on the paper. They stamp perfectly every time. And yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit about some of the dyes that really just make a mark in my stash and what I look for when I'm buying. So for me, I love geometric shapes because geometric shapes can be used honestly like on any occasion really. And so these are the types of dyes that I really tend to gravitate towards, whether they're cover dyes or they're just you know, like a single hexagon or a single square or a single whatever shapes you're using here. This one I just purchased myself, just things because again, you can use them for so many different occasions and there's so many different things that you can do with these. So you can just cut them out and use them onto your card. You can cut them out in white and just use it to enhance your clean and simple background. You can cut this you get automatically 2 cards out of all cover plate dies, right? So if I cut this once, I'm going to get the frame and I'm going to get all these little pieces. So I can grab some pattern paper, let's say, and then I can use up my pattern paper by filling up the squares. I can emboss a beautiful background stamp onto some colored cardstock, cut it with this, and then make a ton of different backgrounds with different colors. There's just so much you can do with these. And I've talked about background stamp or background cover dyes and background stamps so much on my channel in the past. And if you don't know this, if you click on your favorite channel and you actually go to their channel page, there's a magnifying glass there and you can actually search within the channel. So instead of searching all of YouTube, you can search, for example, for me, like cover dyes, and then all my videos with cover dyes are going to pop up. So cover dyes, as pricey as they can be, they're going to be really different based on company to company, depending what kind of rates they get from their manufacturer, and how much they pay the designers and things like that. It's always going to play a big role. But this is just all geometric shapes are really great. And if for those of you that have manual die cutting machines like the Big Shot, a Cuttlebug, things like that, then these ones here, the ones with really big shapes, are going to be the ones that are really great for you because they're not super intricate. You don't usually need to worry about having a shim. And if you're doing paper piecing techniques, these ones obviously are a lot easier because you only have a few pieces that you need to paper piece back in. Whereas the other thing I really like are really intricate dies like these ones. They're not really ideal for paper piecing because this would take forever, but they're really, really beautiful. And these ones work best in machines like the Gemini Junior, in those electronic die cutting machines. Electronic, I always get the two mixed up. But these ones are really great for that because they'll really get in. But with a shim, they'll cut with a normal one as well, and as long as your die cutting plates are in good shape. So these are the things that I look for in cover plate dies. So if you're ever looking for cover plate dies, just think about like, can I use it for more than one occasion? And that's why geometric shapes really work for me. Is this something I'm only going to use once? Is it super specific? Like, is it like a summer camping scene? And then how often are you going to be able to use it unless you have some sort of bulk card project that you need to do, right? We come to a die-related question that I struggled with. What's your favorite electric die cutting machine? My favorite one is the Gemini Junior, but I have to say I haven't tried the other ones because I have this one and I'm super happy with it. I had the original Gemini, but there was a defect with it. I'm not saying that all of them have a defect or anything. So when I sent it back, I asked for the Gemini Junior and I was sent that one, and I like it a lot better. It's just more, it can handle more. And then, would you recommend AliExpress or something similar to that company? So AliExpress is a very touchy subject with crafters because AliExpress is kind of like a Facebook Marketplace or Amazon Marketplace where anyone can sell. And there are tons of designers on AliExpress, for example, that have stolen the designs from the American companies or from the European companies or from whatever companies and have literally copied, like they don't have the copyright issues that we might have in our own countries in China. And then so they sell them for like 99 cents. And then they're literally stealing from these companies and also making it harder for small companies to open and stay in business. So in a one way, I don't support AliExpress at all, but I do want to recognize that, and that's something that not a lot of crafters are willing to talk about, that there are legitimate sellers on AliExpress, but it's really hard to figure out which ones those are and which ones those aren't. And if I can get a die on AliExpress for $2, including shipping, I'm going to really wonder if the metal that I'm touching is safe. To be honest with you, is it safe to touch? Do I need to use gloves? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a little bit weary about those, just because they don't have the regulations that are in place here. But there are, I mean, a majority of the dyes these days, I believe I've heard from a few people that the dye manufacturer in the United States is a little bit difficult to work with at times, when it comes to time and things. And there's always fast releases coming out, so a lot have switched over to China. But I'm guessing that whatever is imported, it has to follow certain regulations, I would assume, right? So that's my opinion on AliExpress. I'm leery of it. And you can always tell the quality difference. I always find there's like, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I always find like this darker gray color to be a higher quality than this lighter silver color, gray. You can really tell from like when you go like this, like, is there a lot of give in the dye or not? And usually those really cheap dyes that you might get in like magazine subscriptions and things like that often have those really cheap ones, and then they can warp over time, right? If Beth is asking if I had a larger space, do you think I'd want a much bigger stash? Absolutely not. I've had that in the past where I mean, it was still in a bedroom, in my own bedroom, but I didn't share my bedroom with anyone, so I could just kind of have stuff piled everywhere. And no, I was never all that creative because I had too many choices. It was just really overwhelming. The first two cover plates I show, this one here is Catherine Pooler. This one here is Pink Fresh Studios, I believe. Altenew, Catherine Pooler, and Pink Fresh Studios. Not sure which ones I showed first. Okay. I'm just reading through the comments to see if there's any questions before moving on. Okay, so I don't unfortunately know the names because I don't label them anymore, fortunately. But I believe this is something with hexagons. This is stained glass something, I believe, from Catherine Pooler. This one is, I can't remember, from Altenew, but it's still available. I know that. This one just came out from Pink Fresh, so it's probably in the new section. And this one as well from Catherine Pooler was like in a release or two ago, so it will be quite up front. So hopefully that'll help. So yeah, that's one of the, I don't personally support AliExpress, and I probably won't, but I do understand that there are a lot of crafters on a budget. And I just hope that if you're one of the people that get your craft supplies, that you're just looking into making sure that it's a legitimate seller and not someone that's just stolen designs from someone, right? Because we still want to be able to have those mom and pop shops, those small shops that are available to us. All right, so moving on to more dye talk. Another thing that I look for that gets me a lot of money out of my dyes. This one here is from the Stamp Market. It's a high dye, as you can see. And this high dye, any dye, if you can see, that has not just the letters that are going to cut out, but also the line along it. It's kind of like a shadow, or shadow dyes in general. This actually, when you cut it out, I believe you get 3 highs out of it, like with all the outlines and everything like that. So it's like you're getting the one dye, but I'm also getting the opportunity to have solid letters, and I'm getting the opportunity to have the outlines for the letters. So I really love dyes like that, because it's like getting double the amount for your money. And I don't believe it costs like manufacturing anymore, because you're still using the same amount of metal. So the dyes like this I really like, because I can, like I said, solid outline, and then not only that, I can put the solid and the outline around it in a different color and just really highlight it. So those types of ones, or with shadow dyes, I really love those. Another thing that I've been really into lately are dyes that look like, these are both from Altenew. And what I like about these ones here is they don't actually cut out the image. What it does is it cuts it into your card base. So you would run your card base through the die cutting machine, and then it wouldn't come as like a separate piece. It would be cut directly into the card base. So this is one of the things that I personally really like, to add to my cards because I think they're just really kind of special. They give you that intricacy, but you don't have to like glue down all those little pieces that could be super annoying, so it cuts it directly into your cardstock and you're good to go. One of the questions is, how do you know if they're a legitimate seller on AliExpress? To be honest with you, other than the fact that like I just recognize stamps that are similar from releases I've seen, I don't really know how to check it. And that's one of the reasons why I just stay away from AliExpress, because to me, it's more important to have quality and a small amount of things than to spend my money on a whole bunch of cheap things and then just bulk up my room into things that I probably won't be using. And then also, of course, to support a small business is important to me as well, and something in the craft industry. So, yeah. Okay. Another thing that I really love, and so when you're die cutting, it's really great to have things like your basics, right? So behind me, I have, you can see here, all of my like nesting, like circles, squares, rectangles. I have a nesting flower, meaning that they go from like small to large in size. And I really like to have one of each, whether you like ones with stitching or you like just the basic shape itself. Those ones are always good to have. And I would recommend that, like, if you're just starting off in die cutting, that you would have a rectangle, a rectangle and a circle for sure. Square can come later, and any other shapes like diamonds or whatever. And then one thing I love to have is like a good set of different leaves, just because you could use those as little embellishments for really anything. And then you can go on to grabbing, a cover plate here or there, because there are just so many techniques you can do with cover plates that I do find it's worth it to have a couple in your stash. Okay. Someone asked how to start a D-stash. I would also like to know. I personally just post on my own social media pages, so I'm not sure how there. I know there's like there's groups on Facebook that are dedicated to destashing, so you might want to check some of those out. Lori's saying, beware of the sellers from AliExpress. The stamps don't always match the die. Might be cheap, but sometimes you get what you pay for. Exactly. And I just want to reiterate that AliExpress is not a seller. AliExpress is like Amazon. So AliExpress has all these little people providing things to it. So you can't just say like everything from AliExpress is bad and illegitimate. It's just these individual sellers, right? So it's like a marketplace. All right. The other thing I love to buy are alphabet dies. And I have a video coming out actually soon. I have it actually. It's in the works. It's filmed. It's coming out at some point in the next couple of months. And it's all about how annoying alphabet dies can be, because it's like trying to line them up and then trying to line up all these little letters and trying to glue them all down. And I have a whole bunch of tips coming your way on how to deal with those issues and how to be a little bit more efficient with them. But when it comes to picking out an alphabet die, I recommend to have an alphabet die, because then you can create all sorts of like really custom cards, with whether it's people's names or like a funny quote you've seen or something, or maybe there's some sort of movie quote. My sister and I swear we just speak in movie quotes. I like to, you can send a card with like your favorite movie quote or something. But when you're looking for alphabet dies, there's a couple of things to look out for. So one of the things would be, of course, is how big is the die. So this is one of my favorites. This is the Bold Alpha from Altenew in the lowercase version. And it's one of my favorites, but I also do know that if I'm making an A2 size card, I can't fit more than, like, depending on the letter, 3 to 4 letters, like in a row. You have to either make a slimline card or, that kind of thing. So as nice as they might be when they're nice, big, bold, and thick, if you're making cards, they're great for scrapbooking. They might be something you might be say, okay, I need actually something thinner. And then that's when you're going to want to go to, really thin alphas, more so this size, because you can really fit, quite a few letters along the way. And that's really important when you're thinking about your alphabet dies. How many letters do you need to have on a line? So you might want to go for something a little thinner, a little taller than, let's say, something thick and chunky, especially because alphabet dies can be on the expensive side. You might not want to invest in a ton of sets. And one of the first alphabet dies I wanted to talk about was these massive ones. And these are great from for scrapbooking and things. But realistically, on a slimline card, I can fit 2 or 3 of these letters only. So I could spell out like Dad and Jen and, like really short names. But I can't do much else with them except for creating like a monogram card. So that might be something if you're not a scrapbooker where you're like, actually, as pretty as those letters are, not quite for me, right? What alpha does that B come from? That comes from, I believe, all the letters from Concord and Ninth. It's one of my favorites. And this R comes from, there's a tall alpha from the stamp market that's very similar. And I think this one's the scrapbook.com alphabet die though. So I hope that that information kind of is helpful. And then the last thing I like, just similar to cover plates, are dies like this one, because they take up the whole card almost. And again, just like a cover plate die, anything I can do with a cover plate die, I can do with a die like this one. And it just creates a big, massive focal point on the front of a card. And it makes for like really, really quick, easy card making. All right, I'm just going to check there's any questions here so far. So thanks everyone for having a great chat here. There's a lot of people going back and forth with the AliExpress. Some people are getting to know each other, and that's really great to see. So remember the download that I have in the video description on the ABCs of stop wasting your money on craft supplies you won't use and start investing in supplies you will, going through that analyzing of your stash to see, okay, what kind of cards do I actually legitimately make? B, for brand. Okay, are there certain brands I gravitate towards and certain brands I notice in my stash that I buy, but I never end up using? And then going into the C with the create and actually keeping track of how often you're using certain things, especially if it's something where you're like, okay, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to purchase a supply or if I really need it in my stash. And I'm talking about people like me who have like literally this is my craft space and that's pretty much it, right? Okay. So if you have any other questions for me about dies, I'm super open to answering any questions for the last little bit. For those of you that maybe need to head off, I've said my piece for the most part. What I decided to keep, what I decided to get rid of, as I said, getting rid of occasions and things that I never use, right? Who I never actually send cards for. Justine, do you ever die cut a bunch at one time of different dies as a stash? Stacy, that is something I do not do. I will sit here though and like cut out a whole bunch of dies if I'm going to bulk card make, but I already have a plan in place so that I'm going to use them all up. The only ones I do that with are with things like simple strips or easy expressions. You know, those sentiments where it comes as one stamp, you stamp it all down and you can cut them all out at once. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot of leftovers in that case, but I find trying to like store them and organize them, it just takes up so much time. And so I don't personally do it. If I do end up getting an extra though, I'll just slip it in the back of the stamp pocket usually, and that'll be good for me. Could you make some typography cards so that we could use our alpha stash? Marsha, that's coming actually. I was just saying that I created a video on how to easily use your alphabet cards. How do I store my dies? One second, I can show you. I just gotta pick you up. Okay, so I actually have stored them every way imaginable, but this is the way that I'm truly enjoying storing them. So on the insides of my cupboard doors, I put magnet sheets and I have them all here. So I try to arrange them in like somewhat of a logical order. So all of these sides are like images. And if I go over here, this all side is sentiments. And I try to stick like things together. So all my alphas are down here. Sorry for the wobbly camera. So that's how I store them. But I've stored them in CD pockets before. I liked storing them in the CD pockets, but it took up a lot of space because I'd have one in each pocket and then I started combining them and it just got confusing. So I really quite like it the way it is right now, hanging up. I can see everything. So Ardith invested in some new supplies, I see. How do you store your dies? Do you know what company makes the largest alpha dies for scrapbooking pages? Not 100% sure if they're the largest, but these ones are really big. The ones that I have, it's about, I'd say at least 3 inches. These are from Altenew. With limited supplies, how do you keep your cards new and fresh to send to friends and family? In all honesty, I have very few supplies. I have like 3 thank you dies and 3 birthday dies. And I don't have a lot. 3 boxes of stamps, as I said, like shoe boxes. To some people that might sound like a lot, but for someone who creates a ton for YouTube and for friends and family, I keep things new and fresh by keeping the techniques there. So just because I have this high die, I can use this probably in about 30 different ways, just thinking off the top of my head. I have my technique resource binder, which is a course that I've taught in the past. All my classes are available at justinehoveyclasses.com. And I can just look for techniques and then I let the techniques do all of the new and fresh. Okay, I'm hoping I didn't miss any other questions. How did you attach them to doors? I actually used, you see that big roll of scrapbook.com tape, that double-sided tape? I just used that. It worked. Does anyone have a problem with spellbinders? I had problems with the die the month they sent me a duplicate when I contacted them. Just gave me a $5 credit. I'm not too sure. I haven't had any issues with spellbinders, but sometimes there are manufacturing issues that pop up. I mean, it happens, and then just let them know. Usually they're pretty good about it. Where did I get the magnet sheets? I used to store them on magnets, all my dies. I got them from My Favorite Things for the most part. You can get cheaper ones, but I like the strength that these ones, because when I slam my door, they don't really fall off. So I got them from My Favorite Things. And Artist is saying she got 12 by 24 magnet on Amazon. That's supposed to go on the side of a car. Yeah, whatever works. I often say if you can get something at a hardware store rather than a craft store, oftentimes it's a lot cheaper. Some people categorize their dies in Evernote. That's a great tip as well. I don't feel like I need. I'm currently cataloging my sentiment stamps, but I feel like my dies are pretty realistic amount there. They're all together. So if I need a thank you, I just go in there. Evernote is, I believe, made by Google, is it not? It's like a database. So you can go in and store notes and keep track of them that way. And you can use tags to help you find things. Okay, just download it and give it a try. It's, I believe, free up until a certain point. So it's really good. Airtable is another one that you could use to categorize your stuff. All right, I'm going to sign off if there's no other questions, but thank you so much for coming out on your long weekend and spending time with me. I can't believe this many people are here. And yeah, I just appreciate you coming on, and I hope everyone has fun with their dies. Like I said, support small businesses, but just buy things that you're going to actually use so you aren't feeling guilty about your purchases at all, right? That's what we're here, all about using your stash, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your stash has to be old, right? All right. Well, thanks everyone, and have yourselves an amazing weekend. And any questions, I can answer them later in the comments.